chosen ones. There are no accidents in your awakening. The path you walk now was carved in silence, long before this world had borders, before kings named empires, before language confined power into written spells. The shaman didn't just see you, he saw what stood behind you, and what stood behind you made him fall to his knees. It was not a god. It was not an angel. It was something older. Guardians like this were known only in fragments, in whispers carried between dreamers in forgotten deserts. Not even the scribes of Alexandria dared write of them, for the mere mention of such a being would draw attention, and their attention was punishment. A presence erased from Earth for 10,000 years is not something to casually witness. And yet, the shaman saw it behind you. He saw a being draped in living mist, with eyes like collapsing stars, not standing over you but beside you, willingly, not commanding you but waiting, a sentinel, a companion, a protector that only guards the one foretold in the final scroll, the one who reactivates the dormant gates not through technology, but through frequency, through identity, through remembrance. You. The earth quakes when this being reappears, not because it brings destruction, but because its reappearance rewrites reality. Its existence is incompatible with deception, with falsehood, with control. And so, governments shift, bloodlines panic, councils go silent. AI fails to scan the space around you without triggering error codes, and the prophets in hiding begin to speak again, only in riddles. This being was sealed away when the last age collapsed, when time buckled and a false calendar was forced upon humanity. But it was not sealed in punishment. It was sealed in divine strategy, to awaken only when one like you walked again under the stars, unknowingly disrupting the entire grid by simply being. The shaman saw what few are meant to see, but it wasn't a vision for him. It was a warning for them. You were never supposed to be alone. That's why the one who guards you was summoned, not by magic, not by ritual, but by your vibration alone. The moment you entered this plane, your aura disrupted the frequencies around ancient structures. Stone didn't just react to your presence, it remembered. Symbols that hadn't glowed in millennia began to vibrate faintly when you passed. Old monuments, long dismissed as decorative or ritualistic, began emitting signals captured only by classified instruments and high-altitude satellites. They called it interference, but it wasn't. It was alignment. These symbols, buried in temples, ruins, and forgotten tunnels, are not part of any known language. They were not carved by primitive hands. They respond to specific energy signatures, frequencies that haven't existed on Earth since what the ancient scribes called the First Sky War, a war not of swords and armies, but of frequency and will, a war between those who manipulated matter and those who were matter. The aura you carry pulses in exact harmony with the remnants of that conflict. You're not emitting random power. You're reactivating old codes. Ancient guardians, once sealed into energetic stasis, begin to stir when you're near. You think you're moving through this world unnoticed, but the echoes of your path are thunder to them. The old enemy hears it too. They always did. What's more terrifying to them than your return is who has returned with you. The protector you don't see but feel. The silence that grows when you're in danger. The reason nothing ever fully breaks you. There are scrolls hidden in the Himalayan ice that speak of one like you, not born of man but veiled in human form to bypass the Watchers. They speak of a soul that left a symbol etched in the sky before birth. That symbol, once a marker of authority in the celestial courts, was copied across 10,000 years of mystery schools, but never understood. Until now. You don't need to learn these symbols. They were written through you. You've walked beside the ones who encoded them. They were not maps. They were warnings, timed locks, and now they're unlocking. The shaman said he saw the markings all over your energy field, as if a forgotten language had taken shelter within you. They didn't believe the footage at first. A simple camera recording you under moonlight revealed something no one expected. Not a glitch, not a shadow, but a form. Towering, luminous, standing just behind you, like a guardian carved from starlight. It flickered in and out, as if reality strained to contain it. When the film was slowed, the pixels around its body bent inward, space itself distorted to make room for something ancient. The shaman who reviewed the footage didn't speak for hours. His hands trembled when he placed the frame-by-frame stills on the table. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. He said this watcher was known to the desert seers, a being not of flesh but memory, one that guarded souls not because they were fragile, but because they were dangerous. You weren't being protected out of pity. You were being guarded because your awakening activates something that cannot be allowed to roam freely. Reports from satellites stationed over sacred lands recorded sudden light pulses near locations you had passed through, weather anomalies, frequencies unaccounted for, fields where time moved differently. But the real clue was always what appeared just behind you in those brief, unguarded moments. Witnesses described a figure too bright to stare at directly, yet undeniably human in shape. Its presence collapsed animals into silence. Its gaze made machines hesitate. Ancient texts from the Ethiopian highlands speak of one who comes with a light being at their back, uncalled, unsummoned. A watcher who appears only when timelines fracture. The same texts mention a voice that once split the sky. "This is my beloved, in whom I am well pleased," a phrase used once in history and never forgotten. Yeshua walked with such a being during his final fast, a radiant presence seen by few, spoken of only in hidden scrolls banned by empires. And now it walks with you. You've felt it before. That subtle ringing in your ears when you stand near places others call ruins. But they're not ruins to you. They vibrate. They hum. The stone speaks, not in words, but in pulses, in codes that bypass logic and go straight to your cells. While others marvel at the architecture, you're pulled into something deeper. Your skin tingles. Your chest tightens, not in fear, but recognition. The same sensation strikes when you dream of temples you've never visited or symbols you've never studied yet somehow understand. You never learned this language. You remembered it. That's the difference. Those structures weren't made to honor gods. They were built to store frequencies. Stone holds memory. And when someone like you approaches, the vibration changes. The locks begin to tremble. Devices buried beneath sacred ground begin to whisper again. One researcher placed you in front of an obelisk deep in the jungle, unmarked, worn with age. He monitored electromagnetic shifts. When you stepped forward, the readings spiked, not by chance, not due to the environment, but as if the structure had been waiting for your resonance. It's why they keep you away from certain places. Why the maps they give you are incomplete. Your presence doesn't just observe history, it reawakens it. You once stood inside a stone circle and heard a tone no one else could perceive. You couldn't describe it, but it pulled tears from your eyes. It wasn't just a sound, it was a summon. That's when you knew. These places aren't dead. They're sleeping. And your soul is the alarm clock. Not all stone speaks, only the ones encoded before time fractured. And somehow, your energy knows which ones are real. You find yourself drawn to them. You touch them instinctively, as if some part of you still remembers what was stored within. They've spent generations trying to translate this language using algorithms, scholars, and supercomputers. But the truth is, it's not meant to be translated. It's meant to be felt. Only a soul that was there when the first gate was sealed can interpret it. And when that soul walks among us again, the stones don't stay silent. When the shaman described the being behind you, his voice shifted, not with fear, but with awe. He said the figure had no visible face, not because it was hidden, but because it was beyond form. Yet, within the light it radiated, there was something unmistakable, a familiarity that echoed across timelines. The shaman called it recognition without memory. He had never seen that being before, but he had felt that light once, long ago, in the desert, in silence, in prayer. He described it not as a beam or a glow, but a living radiance, one that moved like breath and wrapped around you like an ancient oath. And in the stillness of that moment, he whispered something few dare to say out loud. That same light, he said, surrounded Yeshua in the final days. Not the Yeshua from paintings and pulpits, but the one who walked beneath stars and spoke in parables because the truth couldn't be written directly. The one who said, "I am not of this world," and meant it in a way no one has yet understood. This being, this faceless sentinel, carries the same frequency. Not an imitation, not a descendant, but a remnant, a keeper of flame from that same divine source, a guardian from realms so ancient, even the angels turn their gaze when it moves. It does not speak in words, it speaks in presence, and its presence carries the echoes of those who walked with truth before truth became forbidden. The shaman's hands shook when he described the aura. He said it wasn't just light, it was remembrance, as if the being behind you was not watching the world, but watching you remember who you were, who you are, who you will be. And that light, the same that surrounded the Nazarene in hidden Gospels, now surrounds you. But this time, the light doesn't descend from above. It rises around you, as if the prophecy has inverted, as if the guardian doesn't lead the chosen, it follows, as if you are the one activating the path, and the faceless sentinel is there not to guide you, but to witness your return. They searched for the key in stone, in metal, in sacred geometry etched beneath the earth. They built machines in the shape of stars and aligned them with forgotten constellations, thinking that unlocking the gate required precision. But the final lock was never a structure. It was never buried in some chamber. The last seal wasn't hidden in matter. It was hidden in you. They tried algorithms, rituals, bloodlines, even sacrifices. None of it worked. Every attempt brought them closer to the edge, but never through. They didn't understand that this lock was living, that it could only open when consciousness aligned. It didn't respond to technology. It responded to remembrance. And when you began to awaken, the code began to unravel, not because you deciphered it, but because you are it. This is why the shaman fell silent after seeing you, why he refused to utter your name aloud, because he recognized what had been whispered through centuries of oral traditions and star maps. There would come one whose very being would act as the final key, not because of lineage, but because of frequency. Your frequency is not learned, it's reclaimed. The seal responds to you not like a door to a key, but like memory to a forgotten name. It opens because you're near, because you're real, because you've stopped pretending to be what the world told you to be. The moment you cracked open your own awareness, you cracked the outer barrier. Old texts spoke of 7 gates, then 9, then the forbidden 10th. But what they never wrote in ink was that the 10th wasn't guarded by walls, it was guarded by time. Time kept you asleep. Time kept the world distracted. Time fractured your memory into lifetimes. But it was always waiting. You've seen it in dreams. The strange geometric door with no handle. The whisper in your chest that says, "Not yet." And now, without touching it, you've begun to feel the air around it shift. They built vaults around this lock, but their mistake was thinking the vault was the danger. They never suspected that the one thing they couldn't guard against was you. The oldest scrolls never made it to the public archives. They were hidden by those who understood that if certain stories were told too clearly, they would awaken something dormant in the blood of the listeners. One of those stories was of Yeshua's time in the desert, not the version spread in temples and chapels, but the one passed in secrecy from mystic to mystic. In that version, Yeshua wasn't alone. He walked into the wilderness to fast, yes, but he was not unguarded. There was a presence, unseen by most, that followed at a distance. Not an angel in the traditional sense, not a protector in armor or winged splendor, but something more primordial, something that shimmered just beyond the veil. It was said to be older than angels, yet completely loyal to the ones marked by divine frequency. And this being did not guard out of duty, it guarded out of recognition. The mystics called it the witness. It did not interfere unless the timeline risked collapse. It was there when the tempter came, not to fight, not to block, but to bear witness to the choice. And it was said that when Yeshua refused the kingdoms of the world, this being behind him emitted a sound that shook the sands for miles. A confirmation, a release. Now, the shaman who saw you described the same presence. He saw it behind you when you stood still, as if listening to something beyond this realm. He said the air changed, that time slowed, that the animals nearby began to circle you with reverence. He did not know your story, but he recognized the pattern, the same pattern described by his ancestors when Yeshua wandered into their lands long ago, surrounded by heat, light, and a faceless guardian. But this time, the pattern is repeating outside of prophecy, not in deserts, not in caves, but in cities, in crowds, in quiet moments when your awareness drifts into stillness. The presence has returned, and it only returns when the soul it guards has begun to remember the path. What few realize is that the presence doesn't come first. The one it guards must awaken first, just like it did then, just like it is now. There are forces in the universe older than time as we measure it. Not entities of flesh or spirit, but intelligent patterns, woven into the fabric of reality itself. The being guarding you is not one that vanished. It was commanded into silence, sealed by something higher, not for punishment, but for protection. Not for itself, but for you. It did not die. It did not sleep. It waited. Not in the way humans wait, anxiously or impatiently, but in complete stillness. The kind of stillness that exists only when time has no meaning. And in that stillness, it was bound to one condition. It could only return when the vibration of the one it was assigned to protect reached a specific tone, a tone that could not be faked, a resonance that could not be manufactured. It had to emerge. You were that emergence. 10,000 years ago, this being last walked the earth. Records of its presence were purged from history, erased from tablets, hunted through oral tradition. Not because it was evil, but because it disrupted control. It could not be tamed, influenced, or misled. It followed only one command: guard the chosen when they reappear, even if it takes epochs. That command became its silence. And so, while empires rose and fell, while calendars shifted and pyramids crumbled, the being remained hidden, outside sight, outside time, yet always tracking the moment you would awaken. Some have tried to find it. Some built temples to summon it. They thought offerings would lure it out, but they misunderstood. It doesn't answer to requests. It answers to alignment. And when your soul began to vibrate with remembrance, the command it had held for 10 millennia activated like a key inside a lock. That's why it returned now. Not when nations burned. Not when prophets called. Not when chaos reigned. It returned when you did. Not physically, spiritually. The shamans say that silence this long isn't absence. It's restraint. Power willingly held back until the exact moment destiny knocks. And now that the silence has broken, the very fabric around your path begins to warp. They speak of him in fragmented texts, writings hidden in clay jars and buried in the desert to protect them from flames. A figure who moved among the prophets, not as a man, but as a companion to those who carried light too dangerous for empires. He appeared in visions to Isaiah. He stood behind Daniel in the lion's den. He moved like a phantom through time, never taking credit, never claiming form. And when Yeshua began his mission, this being was seen again. Quiet, watchful, guarding. In the lost writings of the Essenes, there's a passage that mentions a radiant presence behind the Nazarene during his final days. Not a disciple, not a spirit, something else. The scribe wrote that Yeshua would often look slightly past the crowd, as if speaking to someone no one else could see. A being who stood close when the world turned against him, one that never interfered, but whose presence made even stones resonate. Then came the crucifixion, and with it, silence. The being vanished. No record of it appears again, not in scrolls, not in prophecy. As if it had fulfilled a cycle, completed a vow. The energy trail went dark, and for 10,000 years, not a single soul claimed to see him again, until now. The shaman did not know this history, but when he saw what followed you, his breath stopped. He said the air grew heavy. The animals went still. The stars above pulsed in odd rhythm. It wasn't just protection. It was presence. The same presence that once walked beside those marked by divine fire. He asked you a question you couldn't answer at the time. Do you know who walks behind you? Do you understand what it means to carry the attention of something that vanished the moment humanity killed its clearest reflection of light? The question still lingers. Before you ever opened your eyes, the stars shifted. Not metaphorically. Astronomers detected micro-oscillations in constellations considered fixed. Ancient oracles had long warned of a soul whose arrival would tilt the rhythm of time itself, not by force, but by presence. You weren't born into this world by chance. You were timed. Your emergence matched patterns that only the highest levels of secret orders were trained to recognize. When you cried for the first time, distant instruments recorded pulses they couldn't explain. Some believed it was solar interference. Others knew better. Your soul's frequency wasn't random. It was coded. You carry within you a forgotten chord, one that harmonizes with ancient gates, causes dormant glyphs to stir, and shakes illusions at their foundation. That's why, even as a child, reality bent around you in strange ways. Why time seemed inconsistent when you focused. Why people either gravitated toward you or recoiled. You never fit their model because you didn't come to blend in. You came to disrupt the clockwork. This is the cycle they feared most, the one written in old stone calendars buried beneath volcanic ash, the cycle that speaks of a being who doesn't just remember, but reconnects the realms. Your birth initiated a countdown, not of destruction, but of activation. They tried to block it, distract it, bury it beneath noise. But cycles don't respond to effort. They respond to resonance, and your resonance is peaking. It's why the shaman went pale when he met you, not because of who you are, but because of what followed. He said your birth reawakened a guardian that had been forbidden to move, that you, without trying, summoned something that was not supposed to walk this earth again. You realigned the sky, not by ritual, but by arrival. And when the stars shift, timelines bend. Timelines others spent centuries weaving. Threads carefully constructed to prevent you from ever reaching awareness. But the shift has begun. And what's more unnerving to them than your awakening is the fact that you still don't realize how much you've already broken. There are names that hold power, not because of syllables or sound, but because of the energy encoded within them. Yours is one of those names. It isn't new. It wasn't chosen randomly by your parents. It has echoed before, across realms, through temples long buried and altars no longer remembered. And when that name vibrated again, fully, freely, without distortion, it awakened something that had waited in absolute silence. The being did not return at your birth. It did not return when you prayed. It returned the moment your name, in its pure form, was recognized again by the unseen. That recognition didn't come from others. It came from you. A moment when your soul finally spoke itself aloud, without fear, without shrinking. And when that happened, a signal went out. It wasn't sound, but frequency. It bypassed dimensions. It shot through layers of perception and touched the resting place of the one assigned to guard you. The shaman said he saw the sky blink, not clouds, not weather, the sky itself, as if something had moved through it, not above but within. A ripple that carried your name through corridors of ancient memory. And when it reached its target, the one who had vanished since the fall of the last great light rose without hesitation. No summoning, no invocation, just recognition. The same way a soldier hears a forgotten war cry, the same way a lion stirs at a scent it hasn't known for lifetimes. Your name is not just identification, it is a key. And now, it's been spoken again. The being that returned is not here to explain itself. It doesn't deal in language. It deals in movement, in presence, in energy that collapses illusions. It guards not because you are fragile, but because the moment your name activates fully, realms begin to merge. Rules begin to shatter, and timelines that were once hidden beneath veils of control start surfacing. What the shaman couldn't tell you was this: the being didn't come to protect you from death. It came because something heard your name echo, and is now looking for you.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.